Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to another Supatease video. And in this one, I'm going to be constructing a tier list going over what are the best duelers and or 1v1 specializations in World of Warcraft. And yes, I've included tanks and healers, although if you try to play one of these and duel somebody, they're probably going to pretend that you don't exist and put you on an ignore list. But if you want to go out into world PvP and really pick on some people out in the world, there's still going to be really good specializations and they can't volunteer to ignore you in those positions. So I felt like it was still worth putting the tanks and the healers on, as they are highly competitive when it comes to 1v1, but just taking into consideration that you're not going to be making very many friends. Also, personal experience. You're not going to be making very friends. You're probably losing friends if you play them. But let's start things off here. We've got the Affliction Warlock. Now, the Affliction Warlock in the past could get bullied around a little bit. But in Shadowlands, with the returning mobility and curses and legendary effects like a corruption slow on top of their mobility having been returned to them, it's a specialization that can dot up a target and run away and just keep running and watch the dots go. If it's really in trouble, Mortal Coil into a big drain life, and you're going to be healing back up to full. I've broken this tier into S, A, B, C, D, E, and F. S is like absolutely bonkers level. So if something's going up there, it means it has the entire thing up there. Like reset potential is something that's very important when it comes to 1v1. So being able to crowd control a target and then reset your health, really powerful. Affliction Warlock, not great at that. You can power through with things that get any resolve to be uninterruptible, but getting a clean reset is not going to be achievable. So in my mind, that holds it back from being an S tier, but it's definitely a top contender. It will struggle with the specializations that go up on the S tier. The next specialization we've got is the Arcane Mage. This is one that's a notoriously annoying specialization to deal with as a melee DPS, and effectively with infinite sustainability through Prismatic Barrier. It's really hard to kill. It's really annoying. It does a lot of damage. It's not going to be an S tier, unfortunately, in 1v1, but out of all of the mage specializations, it's pretty much the only one that I would even suggest you try to 1v1. In my mind, Arcane is a B tier 1v1 specialization. And this is, again, comparing to the classes that are going to be above it. It's still a strong choice, definitely the best of all of the mages, but it can reset with polymorph and try to eat with greater invisibility, and it can be really annoying, but finishing targets off and dying in stuns, it's going to fall a bit short to some of the specializations that are higher up on the list. The next specialization we've got is the Arms Warrior. This, unfortunately, is kind of poop tier. Is that a tier? I should have made a P tier for poop tier. Arms Warrior has been a tough spec to duel as forever. It doesn't really have any great matchups. It's just easy to control. Doesn't have a lot of healing to provide to itself, which has really held it back. Even talenting into some of the new and buffed healing talents, it's still going to struggle with it. In my mind, the Arms Warrior is a specialization that you almost never want to go into a situation without a healer. By yourself, you're going to really have a tough time being a 1v1er. Assassination Rogue, not the best 1v1 spec for Rogue, but still a Rogue. With Blind and Vanish to reset and Cloak of Shadows and Evasion for all-ins. It's still really strong, but it doesn't have the ability, if it goes all in and then it resets, it has to wait a really long time. It still has the advantages of stealth, which is why in my mind Assassination Rogue would be an A tier dueling specialization. It's just flat out Rogue has Blind and Vanish in Cloak and Evasion, and that puts it in a spot where it can basically all in kill somebody, but its frequency and its ability to completely reset is held back a bit comparatively to its other specs available to the class. Blood Death Knight, this is one that's super annoying. It's not, in my mind, an outstanding tank when it comes to 1v1, so being able to kill a target, but you're also never going to die. So it really just depends on what your goal is. Do you want to be really annoying and not actually effective? Then it would be a decent dueling specialization. It can likely beat something like an Arms Warrior, right? So it's not going on the Arms Warrior tier, but out of the tanks, I wouldn't put it as the strongest 1v1 tank right now. I'd put it probably at about a D overall. Now, it would be really annoying to the specializations above it on the tier, but I don't think it would ever kill them, although I'm not sure if they would ever kill it either, so it's kind of this weird paradox. Probably just don't play the tank specs or the healer specs, but regardless, we've got Beast Mastery Hunter. This is a spec that in the past was really good at 1v1, but now kill command requires line of sight, so you can't just kind of send your pet onto the target and it kills them for you and you're just chilling. It still has a lot of just immediate upfront instant cast burst damage. It still has camouflage. It can freezing trap its target, run away, camouflage, heal back up, so it still has a very strong dueling potential, although it's not amazing in arena. It's a specialization that I would comfortably put on the A tier for dueling, because it has the ability to reset, it has a ton of upfront burst damage, it has immunity cooldowns to outplay other all-ins, so it is a strong 1v1 specialization. Balanced Druid with the returning of Heart of the Wild is a great 1v1. I feel like you're honestly, when Heart of the Wild is available, you're almost never going to lose a 1v1. The only real trouble you're going to have is with specializations that can completely reset, and that's going to be a lot of the S tier specializations, which is why I would hold Balanced Druid a bit back here. But if you really want a spec that's good at dueling and solid and all around, it's going to be great. The problem comes in when you want to finish a target off, and if it's one of the best dueling specializations, it can just make it impossible to finish itself off, so it doesn't get into the S tier because of that. Its ability to finish is low, but its survivability is quite high with Heart of the Wild Guardian affinity. Brewmaster Monk, similar to the Blood Death Knight, you're going to be kind of annoying, but not great, and I feel like you're going to struggle to kill targets. In my mind, probably worse than the Blood Death Knight overall for 1v1s, probably an E tier. Out of all the tanking specializations, not great. We've got the Demonology Warlock. This is one where you don't have the same type of toolkit Affliction got with the legendary for corruption slows, so it takes you a long time to ramp up. If you're interrupted and shut down, you're going to really struggle. In my mind, Demonology is a specialization that you would never want to go into a 1v1 with. I'm putting it on the F tier. When it comes to dueling, Demonology is probably a spec that you want to avoid, although it's probably a spec you just want to avoid in general. Destro Warlock here coming up next. This is a really bursty all-in class. Where it starts to struggle is its sustainability. Now, while Affliction can kind of heal up on the move, Destro looks to just power down a target. So when you have your Infernals active and you're able to stun lock a target, if you can 100 KO that specialization in the burst window, you're going to feel really strong. But outside of that, if it's a specialization that can reset or avoid you, you're going to struggle. In my mind, Destruction is going to fall much shorter than Affliction. I'm putting it on C tier. It's just going to be really limited in its options. Discipline Priest. Now, this is, in my mind, a specialization that you should almost never lose any 1v1 other than maybe to other specializations on its tier. And it's actually the first specialization I'm putting on S tier, which is a healer specialization, but they just do so much damage that they can defeat pretty much any DPS spec in the game, most tanks. So if you're out in the world and you're world questing or you're leveling or anything like that, as a Discipline Priest, you're going to feel really, really strong. And I know it's going to seem odd, like, why I'm putting a healer spec on this tier list, like just only put the DPS. Again, you're not going to make friends with this. Nobody's probably going to duel you outside Orgrimmar. Nobody's probably going to duel you in Elwyn Forest, okay? But world PvP, you are going to farm as Discipline really easily. So that's why it's here. That's why I'm putting it on the S tier. Elemental Shaman, it's a tough one. It has a lot of instant cast damage with Flame Shock. It has a lot of 100-0 potential with Lightning Lasso. The problem it has is if it fights some of the better specializations, they Gladiator's Medallion out of your lasso and just run you over through all of your defense, and you're going to have a hard time getting away from an engagement. Now, you can run with some Restoration Shaman conduits that will increase your healing. If you did that, you definitely have a much higher potential in my mind as Elemental. I would put Elemental on a B tier when it comes to dueling, but if you're not running those Restoration Shaman conduits, you might start to have a tough time, especially with the specializations that are above it or equal to it. Enhancement Shaman, it's got access to instant cast healing. It's got good burst damage. It's all right survivability, but when you start fighting some of the best dueling specializations on the A and the S tier and even the B tier, I feel like you're really going to struggle to be able to get anything going. In my mind, it falls a bit flat It's going on the C. It's not totally abysmal, again, because you can heal yourself up, really high burst damage, but if somebody has an evasion and a cloak and they pair it up with your cooldowns, then you're doing nothing. Your cooldowns end, and then they run you over like a freight train, and you don't have the ability to really reset. So it's going to be a bit of a struggle. Feral Druid. Now, this is another specialization that is just immediately going up to the S tier, and we can talk about it after it's up there, but it deserves to be up there. The King of the Jungle, the Feral Druid, with immediate burst damage. You're just scary because you already get to start the fight from stealth, so you've always got the upper hand in a 1v1. Your damage is so threatening right now in Shadowlands that targets will likely have to trinket out of your rake stun or trade a powerful cooldown immediately, so you can hold back and sit on powerful cooldowns like Berserk or Incarnation and kill them later with it. If you're really having a tough time, the healing output is ridiculous on it, so you'll recover quite easily. And then if it's any sort of melee DPS, which you might struggle with like a rogue, you can just instant cast root them, run away, heal yourself up, re-stealth, reopen on them. Definitely an S tier dueling specialization. It's going to be great for world PvP or 1v1s. Fire Mage, I don't know if I should put it on F with Arms Warrior, but I struggle to see you beating a lot of specs. Maybe it's not. You can't beat an enhancement shaman as a Fire Mage. All right, we're putting it on the C tier. I don't think it's better than Arcane, but it's definitely not worse than enhancement. So Fire Mage about a C tier. You still have Polymorph to reset. To set up big Greater Pyros. You can't spam it, but still polymorphing a target and then casting Greater Pyroblast to start the fight means that the target is just starting with 35% less health, which is a great way to start it. But if the target has immunity cooldowns or any instant crowd control to put you in and stop you on your burst, or an immunity cooldown to trade for it, then your combustion ends, you're kind of stuck there, and then the other target's just going crazy at you. You're going to have a tough time recovering in a lot of cases. Frost Death Knight, while it looks really solid as a PvP specialization, when it comes to 1v1, the main source of its damage comes from an ability that requires 2 targets, and that's Chill Streak. So if you're dueling in 1v1ing, you're going to struggle to see the real big burst damage. You have big 2-hand obliterate crits, but you really need 2 targets to bounce Chill Streak. So in my mind, it falls a bit short in its dueling potential. The healing output is also a bit limited with Death Strike at the moment. It doesn't feel nearly as strong as it did in Battle for Azeroth. I feel like Frost Death Knight is going to be about middle of the pack when it comes to dueling. Maybe in world PvP scenarios where you've got multiple targets and you kind of grip them together and stun lock them, AoE stun lock them and Chill Streak on them, you might get some really crazy 1v5s in world PvP. But if it's just strictly one target you're attacking, you're going to struggle. Frost Mage, again, a specialization that I wouldn't put on the Arcane tree. You're going to struggle versus basically every good specialization when it comes to 1v1 in world PvP. You're super annoying to the specs that are beneath you, like Arms Warriors. You get to laugh at them quite a bit, but in my mind, Frost Mage is also just middle of the pack, C tier. It's not fantastic for 1v1s. You're not going to be winning a tournament as a Frost Mage, but if you want to go out and be really annoying in world PvP and snare targets, maybe catch them off guard from invisibility with some burst damage, and they aren't present at their keyboard to trade any cooldowns with it, you're going to have a pretty good time with it. Middle of the pack. Fury Warrior has great sustainability. It's just always healing itself at all times with solid damage output. Typically in arena, it suffers because it doesn't have mortal wounds, but when it comes to dueling, it's able to sustain itself quite effectively. In my mind, the Fury Warrior is about a B. It's not fantastic because it can't completely reset. So if you get crowd control on things like your enraged regeneration, or the target is able to avoid you long enough to prevent you from generating any rage or getting any of your healing going, you're going to start to struggle, which the best specializations can do. I could see a scenario where a Fury Warrior and a Disciplined Priest attack each other and nothing happens forever. You're actually just stuck. The 1v1 never ends. You just have to admit defeat and part ways if that happens. But when it comes to actual capabilities, I think it's a little bit more limited than the A tier and the S tiers currently. Guardian Druid, one of the better tanks for 1v1, mostly because of brambles. So if a target attacks you, you do damage back to that target, which makes it one of the best 1v1 specializations. I'm a bit hesitant to put it on S tier for 1v1. Mostly, well, number one, no one's ever going to duel you. If they do, they're just already basically a million defeat. There's a couple specializations in the game that can give you a tough time and be difficult. So in my mind, it's probably an S tier, honestly, for 1v1, which might sound surprising, like it's a tank specialization. But the ability to heal yourself, be self-sustainable, you have stealth, you have roots to reset, you have the same kit as Feral, and you probably do pretty close to the same amount of damage. Again, if you got into a fight with a Fury Warrior, it's a duel that probably never ends. It's a song that never ends. But if you got into a duel against some of these other specs like BM Hunter, I see it being more than easily possible that you would beat them. So I think it does deserve to be up on the S tier when it comes to dueling. Havoc Demon Hunter now it's one that's fallen off a bit. It's still got a lot of leech potential. Again, if you were to duel against a Guardian Druid, it's a duel that probably never ends. You don't have much reset potential, which is the real downside of it. I wouldn't put it as an S tier dueling specialization. I'm trying to think if I want to put it on an A tier either or a B tier. You still got Metamorphosis. You burst down a target really quickly, but I feel like it's gonna fall a bit flat from the A tiers. The A tiers just have great mobility and constant reset potential, whereas the Havoc Demon Hunter doesn't. It's kind of just all in or nothing. So it's going to fall a bit short. I would say it's about a B tier when it comes to 1v1ing or World PvP 1v1ing. Holy Paladin, when you have Avenging Crusader, you're pretty threatening. As soon as that's gone, you're not too threatening in my mind. As a Holy Paladin, you're probably not wanting to be dueling anybody or picking any fights out in the world. So F tier for Holy Paladin here. Same thing for Holy Priest. Very similar boat. Nobody's going to want to duel you in just a dueling scenario. And in World PvP, there's nothing particularly flavorful about your spec that's really going to enable you. Maybe you can pick on a arms warrior or something as a Holy Priest, but most of the other specializations in the game are either going to crowd control you and walk away or beat you. So just probably not a great specialization if you're interested in 1v1ing. Marksmanship Hunter, really solid opener for burst damage, but you're susceptible to just getting tunneled down really quickly. If you're getting stun locked, it can be difficult to get your burst damage off. So if you don't KO somebody, you're going to fall behind. So I would put the reset potential lower than BM Hunter when it comes to 1v1. Of course, this is me saying this, testing on the beta where Marksman can literally 2-tap somebody and kill them, which I don't think that's going to end up like that. So I'm making this assessment without that in mind. I think it would fall short of BM when it comes to 1v1. It's about a B. Mistweaver Monk, again, another healer you don't probably want to play in a 1v1 situation. It just doesn't have enough damage output. Even if you are running Chi and you're able to get some fist weaving in, you can pick on the specs that can't heal themselves at all, but every other spec's going to walk away or kill you. So generally don't want to be a Mistweaver when it comes to 1v1. Outlaw Rogue is actually doing quite a bit of damage at the moment. I was a bit surprised when I saw it. It was able to top quite a few skirmish meters in 3v3 when I was playing. It was actually looking reasonably impressive with a short blind cooldown. It's very similar to Assassination in that sense. It still has its poisons returned to it. In my mind, Outlaw would be about the same as an Assassination Rogue at the moment. Subtlety, and when we get to it, it's definitely performing better and it's more frequent in terms of its burst potential, so it would be higher, but Outlaw looks really solid. And Protection Paladin, now this is another one like Guardian Druid that has the ability to redirect damage back to attackers, which makes it really powerful. Again, it can heal itself, has immunity, and also does it just a ton of damage. Like, this is easily an S tier when it comes to 1v1. Like, if you're a prop paladin out in the world questing and there's somebody on the other faction you want to kill, and it better be on the Alliance, because if you're playing on Alliance, I don't know what's wrong with you. Probably not going to win a 1v1 anyway if you're playing on Alliance, but you can pretty much pick any fight you want. Nobody's going to mess with you in World PvP. Is somebody actually going to duel you in a dueling scenario? Probably not, but if you want a 1v1 in World PvP and smash people, Prop Paladin is really good at that. Prop Warrior, it's okay. It's not great. Again, you heal yourself a little bit more now in Shadowlands, but it's not enough. In my mind, it's probably better than Arms in a lot of dueling scenarios, but it's about probably the same as a Brewmaster. Not great. Out of the warrior specializations, if you want a 1v1, as prop, people will probably avoid you in World PvP, but if you actually wanted to target 1v1 situations, Fury is obviously going to be your best choice as a warrior. Resto Druid with Feral Affinity and Heart of the Wild, I feel like every Druid spec is almost S tier. Like, there's no way you can't put Druid up here. As a Resto Druid with Feral Affinity and with Heart of the Wild, you beat a lot of specs in the game. There's just no way that they can outlast you in World PvP or maybe random battlegrounds. Like, you will just flat out own everything in those 1v1 situations as a resto druid. Again, will someone duel you in Duratar? Probably not, because you are that good. But if you were wanting to like kind of like, you know, mess with people out in the world PvP, resto druid is a good spec to do it. Restoration Shaman, it's probably better than the other healers. Keeping Flame Shock up with instant Lava Burst will give you a lot of potential against some specs in the game to be able to finish them off. So I wouldn't put it as low as Holy Paladin, Holy Priest, or Mistweaver, and that's because you can do Flame Shock and Lava Burst at all times. So in my mind, it's probably about a D. It's definitely better than a lot of the other options when it comes to healers, but it's not Disc and it's not a Resto Druid when it comes to damage output. Retribution Paladin, great burst damage, really good for all inning, but if your all in doesn't work out, you're kind of stuck, and a lot of the other specs can get away from you and reset. In my mind, you're gonna struggle with a lot of specs in the game, so I would put it about a C. I'm just trying to cross compare it to make sure that this makes sense. You stand no chance against Arcane. You will struggle with Frost and Fire, although it's probably possible if you all in them. Yeah, it's about a C, a middle of the pack when it comes to 1v1 and duels. Shadow Priest has a really good kit right now. Devouring Plague is doing a ton of healing, which is very important for dueling. You've got good lockdown with a stun into a silence. You can burst it down with Venthyr Covenant, with Mind Games, insane damage. In my mind, Shadow Priest is just an S tier for anything in the game. Maybe not if a raid log parse tells you that it's not, but it's a spec that feels good. The only thing is you kind of can't reset, so targets could just dot you up and run away. So I think that does actually hold it back from being an S tier dueling specialization. I would put it on about A at the moment, but I don't think it's an S. I don't think it's so completely crazy in 1v1 particularly that it could just walk away from every single fight unscathed. Subtlety Rogue, now this is one that is going up here. This one's going up here. Subtlety Rogue is just amazing in the game in general right now. It's the top performer, fantastic specialization, super fun. Also, this is just the hit and run spec. Like if you want to play Grand Theft Auto in World of Warcraft, play Subtlety Rogue. You just sneak up on people, burst them down in a stun. You don't kill them, you blind them, you vanish, you reset, you kill them, save them for later. You know, you just got leftovers at all times. This is especially just eats people alive in dueling. You heal yourself in stealth. You've got reset potential, insane and frequent burst windows. Definitely one of the best dueling specs in the game. Survival Hunter is actually surprisingly very good as well. Similarly to Beast Mastery with Camouflage to reset, a ton of instant cast damage, Feign Death to remove damage over time effects, again for reset potential. Is it as good as the Subtlety Rogue for 1v1? I don't think so. I would say it's about A. And this is very narrowed down to 1v1 for survival. If you had more targets attacking you, like you went to a 1v3, you're going to struggle as survival. But if you're a sub rogue or a guardian or something, you can go into scenarios and not struggle. So but we're talking only about 1v1, so maybe that's a little bit off topic, but I would say it's about an A. It has the same reset potential as BM, good finishing power, stun lock, and reset potential. Not totally crazy like the S tier 1v1 specializations, but it's up there. Unholy Death Knight, definitely one of the best duelers. Chains of Ice, and it's single target dot damage, so it just sends a bunch of pets on a target, dots them up, Chains of Ice, and can run away for a long time. If it needs to get into an engagement, it can start healing up with Transfusion and Honor talents. I do think that this is an A tier. I think it's better than Frost when it comes to dueling. The only thing is you can't really reset, so if it's a target that can crowd control you at any point and walk away from you, you're going to struggle with that. So I wouldn't say that's an S tier dueling specialization, but it's up there. It can definitely compete. Vengeance Demon Hunter, very similar to a lot of the other tanks that are lower on the list. It doesn't redirect damage back to attackers, so its damage is really limited. It's got good mobility. You can get around and maybe never die in a 1v1 because of that, but you'll never also win. So probably putting it here on the E tier when it comes to tanks. This is 1v1, not flag carrying. Just take that into account. And the final specialization here on the tier list is the Windwalker Monk, and this is one that's going up on the S tier. This one, super annoying to kill and finish off, and at any time can decide, this is not a fight I want to take, wait, and then, all right, now I'll move in. I've got Leg Sweep, I've got Paralysis, I've got my Venthyr Covenant, Fist of Fury ready to go. I'm going to burst you down. So this is, again, kind of like the Subtlety Rogue, but rather than going in stealth, it just moves so fast away from other targets like the Flash that nobody can keep up with it, so it can never get finished off. It's a great 1v1 spec. You're going to have a really good time on it in those situations, out in World PvP or just dueling out in Duratar. Definitely a top dog when it comes to dueling. And that's it. We've got it. The entire list is constructed. Every single specialization, including healers and tanks. Although, again, I wouldn't recommend healers or tanks if you want to duel outside Duratar, because there's no way anybody's going to duel you. But if you wanted to smash some people in Battlegrounds and World PvP, they are really good specs to do that. Although, again, you're not going to be making any friends, and people are probably going to spit on you. Personal experience here. But doesn't mean that they're not a top performer. I really hope you enjoyed the tier list here. Again, this channel is all about constructing information for Shadowlands so that we can make the correct decision when it comes to our gameplay, as investing in a character seems to be a pretty big deal for Shadowlands. So you really want to make sure that you're making the right pick and the right fit. So that's the main purpose of this channel. If you liked the video, please leave the video a like, comment down below with your thoughts. I'd love to hear what you think about 1v1s and what you're looking forward to trying in Shadowlands. If you want to see videos with similar content and kind of the one-stop shop for Shadowlands, subscribe to the channel, please. It helps me a lot to do it. It's absolutely free. You just click the little button and you subscribe, and that'll notify you when my videos go live, as I'm uploading them every day. And I try to make sure that these are videos that you don't want to miss out on and are at least entertaining and fun if they aren't on top of that. So again, thank you very much. If you want to check out other tier lists like best PvP specs, most fun specs, top performing specs, I've got them all here on tier lists, and I've got reviews for every specialization. If you really want to dive deep and see the details of any spec, I've got them here on the channel as well. Those will be linked above. So thank you again for watching, and we will see you in the next one.